Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another video for you, and the video is going to be about all the movies that I watched in September. So the first movie that I watched in September was Asteroid City. Asteroid City came out in June of 2023, so that's this year. And it was directed by Wes Anderson. Before I say what the actual movie is about, the movie ultimately is actually about the writer of a play called Asteroid City. And so we're seeing the play being acted out as if it were a movie that is being narrated by Bryan Cranston. Now, the actual play Asteroid City is about a grieving father who goes to Asteroid City with his 3 kids because his son has a junior stargazing event there. And at this event, an alien comes down in a spaceship and it kind of like changes their life, obviously. Another thing that happens is the grieving father's wife had recently just died, and when they go to this event in Asteroid City, he has to basically tell his kids that their mother died. So I think before I say this, I didn't really understand what was going on in the movie. I was kind of confused, but it could also be because I wasn't really paying attention because I found the movie kind of boring. I don't know, it was kind of boring and some parts were slow, but it was still all right. The cinematography obviously was excellent, like very beautiful. There were a lot of pastel colors in this film. I think that the yellows and the oranges really stuck out in this film. I think my favorite parts of this movie were Jason Schwartzman's daughters in the film. They were actually really funny in this movie, and I feel like that's hard sometimes because they're child actors, so like when it's like child actors, it's like hit or miss. I think a lot of people were a little bit confused about the meaning of this movie. I mean, I can obviously tell that this film was about grieving, but I think there was other meanings as well. I think it's basically about grief, and it also questions the meaning of life, what it all means. The grieving father, his wife died, right? And they have her ashes in like a Tupperware container, and he finally shows the kids. They're like, oh, your mother died. He's like, oh, your mother died, and these are her ashes. And I think this kind of represents the whole meaning of the movie entirely, because it's like the 3 daughters, they were questioning their father whether or not they're orphans now, and they were trying to bring their mother back with magic. So they were trying to understand the meaning of life and understand death and everything. And again, I think this really emphasizes the meaning of the movie, because it's like you live your life just to end up as like ashes in Tupperware. So, but I don't think the movie is necessarily supposed to make sense. I think it's just supposed to bring these discussions to the forefront. Overall, I didn't really enjoy this movie, so would I recommend it? No. But if you want to check it out, check it out. Now, the next movie that I watched in September was Shiva Baby, which was directed by Emma Seligman, and this movie actually came out in 2020. So this movie is really short. It's only 78 minutes, and the movie follows a girl named Danielle, who's played by Rachel Sennett, who attends a Shiva, which is, if you don't know what a Shiva is, it's a Jewish post-funeral service. And prior to the Shiva, Danielle had an appointment with her sugar daddy, and at the Shiva, the sugar daddy is also in attendance, and she finds out that her sugar daddy has a wife and a family. And get this, all the money that he gives her is from his wife, because his wife is the breadwinner. So he's posing as like this rich sugar daddy that has like big bands. He's a big baller. Whole time he's spending his wife's money. So she has to be in this woman's face and pretend like she's not getting money from her husband, and she's not sleeping with or hooking up with or whatever with her man. Like, that's crazy. Now, I really enjoyed this movie because I found this movie kind of relatable. Now, hear me out. That sounds crazy because it's like, oh, you have a sugar daddy? No, I don't have a sugar daddy. I think this is really a kind of coming of age kind of story. It represents young people in their early 20s who are trying to figure out what they want to do with their life, because the main character Danielle, she's in college, but she's basically undecided. Like, she doesn't know what she wants to study in college. And this movie also discusses jealousy that young people may feel amongst their peers. Everyone is trying to figure out what it is that she's studying, and they're being judgmental about it because they don't understand it. And there's also another girl there who's the same age as her, who actually happened to be her ex-girlfriend. But there's another girl there who's in college, and she's studying to become a lawyer, and everyone's like, oh, look at her, she's so perfect, she's so amazing. You know, they're basically comparing the two. And yeah, I feel like everyone in the early 20s has dealt with situations like this. And I think it's also discusses making mistakes as a young person, or doing things that are stupid and may not make sense, like having a sugar daddy. Maybe it does make sense because you're still trying to understand your life, and sometimes you have to make mistakes so that you can understand yourself, learn yourself. Maybe don't have a sugar daddy that's married and has a kid. Maybe that's a bit much, but I understand. And this movie also tackles the identity or sexuality of young people that are disapproved by their family, because as I said, Daniel's character was in a relationship with a girl, and Daniel's character identifies as bisexual, but no one that knows about their relationship took it seriously. They kind of just brushed it off as a phase. Her mom was like, oh, I have really good gaydar and you are not gay. Like her mother not taking her sexuality seriously. And like that was very hard to watch. And I feel like it's an experience that everyone can relate to. Obviously not everyone can relate to that specific experience surrounding like her sexuality, but I'm sure everyone has had instances where they felt like they weren't taken seriously because of something that they're doing. Like, for example, maybe you decide not to go to college and you decide to start your own business or something, and your peers or your family, the people that are supposed to love and support you, they don't take you seriously. They don't believe in you. They think that you're not gonna be able to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Like, I understand that feeling, and I feel like that's a universal experience that everyone's had. And this movie also presents the mental gymnastics and fake pleasantries that people have to go through during family gatherings. You know, having to deal with nosy people that don't respect you or you don't like. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, but I also kind of hated it because it was like the most anxiety inducing thing I've ever watched. Like, this was absolutely stressful. Like, I had to take a break in between watching this, even though this movie is only like 78 minutes. But watching Danielle trying to keep it together around everyone and keep up with her lies, like the lies surrounding her with her sugar daddy, and not blow up at people for literally being disrespectful in her face. Like, overall, I just really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, it was a perfect coming of age story for young people today. I definitely recommend it, but again, be aware that this movie will cause you anxiety. If you're looking for a good movie to watch, a nice short good movie with good acting and good cinematography, definitely give this a watch. So yeah. Okay, so the next movie that I watched was Theater Camp, which was directed by Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman. It came out in July, so yeah, it came out this summer. So basically, the story is about the founder of a theater camp in upstate New York who falls into a coma, and prior to her coma, she experienced a lot of financial problems with the camp. And when she falls into the coma, her staff kind of have to work together alongside her son, who's kind of like ditzy and a wannabe Jake Paul. They have to work together to save the camp from being shut down. During like the camp semester, the staff and the kids, they put on a production called Joan Still, which is basically a play about the life of the camp's founder. And I really like this movie. I thought it was really funny. There were a lot of laugh out loud moments. I mean, I don't think I understood everything, like all of the jokes, because I think some of these jokes were jokes that only people who are into theater would understand, but I still thought it was funny. But basically, this movie is like a satire in theater and theater kids. There's a lot of over-the-top characters and, like I said, a lot of theater jokes. So what I really want to talk about this movie is Molly Gordon and Ben Platt, and they played the main characters in this movie, and I really thought they were a funny pair. They played two camp counselors who are kind of in this codependent relationship. I want to focus on Molly Gordon because I've seen Molly Gordon in The Bear, you know, the Hulu television show, and her character was literally so boring and unnecessary. She added nothing to the plot. Like, I don't understand what she was there for, but I feel like they really did her dirty the way they set up her character, because it made it seem like she was a bad actor, but I thought she was hilarious in theater camp. Like, she's a really good actor. So in conclusion, this movie was really funny. As I said, I didn't understand all the jokes because there were theater references, but overall I still thought this was really funny, and I think that you would find it funny as well. So I definitely recommend this movie. Now, the next movie that I watched is The Fly, and I watched the 1958 version of this movie, which was directed by Kurt Newman. So basically this movie is about Francois Delambre. He was called late at night by his sister-in-law, Helene, who confesses to him that she has killed her husband or his brother, Andre. So in this movie, Helene feigns insanity and everyone thinks she killed her husband because she's insane. But eventually she explains to Francois and the police that the true story is Andre, her husband, invented something that includes he invented some sort of transportation apparatus. So there's 2 chambers, right? 1, 2. You put an object in this chamber and it kind of disintegrates and transports into the second chamber over here. And when Andre first experimented with his invention, he only used inanimate objects because he didn't believe in experimenting on living things. But then he started to get curious, and he was like, "Oh, I'll do this because it's in the name of science." He started to test on living things. He started to test on animals, and some of these tests actually failed. Like I said, some of those tests with the living things failed, but eventually he figured out, and then he felt confident enough to try it out on himself. So he experiments on himself, but the experiment, it goes south, it doesn't go well. And when he went into the chamber, he went into chamber 1, and in chamber 1, a fly also entered the chamber. And when he came out and reanimated or whatever into chamber 2, he morphed into like some sort of fly human mutation thing. And then the fly morphed into a second mutation. I really enjoy this movie. I think some parts of the movie were a little bit slow, but I still really enjoy this movie. And I think I kind of found this movie interesting because it kind of discussed man trying to play God. And I think it's like basic, because this movie came out in 1958. And I think it was kind of talking about how quickly science was advancing in the 1950s, because I mean, I don't think there was a bunch of other stuff going on in the 50s, but in the 50s they had like color TVs, transistor radios, satellites, etc., etc. So yeah, I like the concept of this movie. I like the special effects. Yeah, I definitely recommend this movie if you're trying to get into the classics, like movie classics, or specifically classic horror movies. And don't think this is gonna be boring just because it's an old movie. Now, the next movie that I watched, and this is the final movie that I watched, was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, this was the 1978 version, directed by Philip Kaufman. And it's basically a remake of the 1956 film, which bore the same name, and that was directed by Don Siegel. So basically, the premise of the movie is a woman named Beth complains to her coworker slash friend, Matthew, about her husband acting differently. And Matthew kind of brushes it off, but then Matthew begins to worry after hearing reports from other people with like similar complaints or observations. And Matthew's concerns and Beth's concerns are kind of confirmed when his friend and his friend's wife find a mutated body at her place of work. And so basically the group team up together to try and not become besieged or invaded by this unknown force. And the unknown force is a flower that kind of like spews out clones of people. And these clones are working together to complete some unknown task. And these clones they're weird because they act differently in the way that they are emotionless and kind of like inhuman or robotic. I think that this was kind of a critique on capitalism in America, because the clones, as I said, were emotionless and kind of like robotic, and that kind of represents the ideal worker or employee within a company. Companies want workers that won't complain or revolt. They'll just do what they're supposed to do. I know that this represents what's going on in America. So a lot of people in America who work for a company, they already kind of act like these clones, whether they know it or not. And this movie, it's a horror movie, but it's not necessarily scary in the way like it has jump scares or like the special effects are scary. It's scary in the way that these clones or whatever, they actually kind of already exists. It's kind of a chilling reminder of what's going on in our country. Yeah, that's honestly all I have to say about this movie. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it, especially for horror fans or people trying to get into this genre. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Turn on your post notifications. This is all for today. Be happy, be healthy, be safe. Bye.